Hey, welcome back to Fat Mama Physics. In this video, we are actually going to start doing graphs. Graphs. Graphs to show patterns, relationships between two unknowns. So we're going to start off, this is the first section, basically just getting us used to seeing patterns. And specifically, in this, two videos, what we're going to take is we're going to take a scenario. We're going to take a pattern. We're going to translate that into an equation. And then that's going to be our starting point. I have a caveat to that, something I don't like about it. Talk about it in a moment. But I did promise that at the very beginning of every lesson, I would introduce a board game that I currently own, well, my husband and I own, and we'd like to play, okay? So this one I have here is, hopefully you can see the board, it's called Spirit Island. Okay? It's the game itself is kind of controversial, because what this game's about is, you as players work cooperatively as spirits on an island to basically get rid of, the invaders that come to this island and strip it of its resources. Pretty much they come and ravage the land. They take the land and then they build things, they build the buildings. And as spirits of the land, you want to preserve the land, so you want to kind of push these invaders out. You want to scare them and freak them out, get them off the island. So it's got some interesting historical relevance, and it can be a little bit controversial depending on whose side you think of it as. But I actually like the theme almost, because it talks about how the human nature a little bit, and it also is relevant to where I am from. So it's we have a lot of issues with reconciliation with Aboriginals, native culture. So I actually I enjoy this theme to a certain extent. Actually, it sounds a little bit brutal depending on which side you consider it, but it's a game, and I love the game not because of this. I love the game because of the mechanics. I love it for the amount of thinking, the amount of strategy, and the patterns I love in this game. I'll tell you why in a second. So here's the game. It's a pretty box, eh? Okay, so put that aside. And so yes, you are these spirits. You get to choose a spirit. And if you want to know what my favorite ones are, my favorite one is this one. It's the ocean. Ocean is a very strong spirit. It's very hard to play, but once you can play it, it's very exciting, very fun, very strong and powerful. My second favorite one is this guy. He is called the Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares. So he's the guy that can't really do damage, but he racks a whole ton of fear, which is important in this game as well. And the cool thing about this board, the board kind of looks like this. You're on the map that combines like this. This is a two-player game. My husband and I play a lot, or play this, so usually we get this map. If you have a three-player game, this actually expands into a bigger piece, so it's hard to see. I don't know. Here you can take a look at some of the stuff on the map. Here we have wetlands. Over here we have the ocean. We have sand. We have the forest, and we should have mountains somewhere you can't see. It's kind of grayed out, maybe this or something. Anyway, so there's different parts of the land, and as spirits, what you want to do is you want to develop presence, which are represented by these pucks. Every time you get a presence on the board, that's what you do. You want to cover the land with your presence, right? Otherwise, you can't torment these poor invaders. So, there are two ways to win this game. One way as spirits is to, of course, get rid of all the invaders on the land. The other way to win, and I talked about this, is to generate these fear tokens. And of course, the more fear that you generate, the more scared these invaders are, and apparently maybe they'll leave or something. If you generate enough fear, depending on how the players scale up, you can also win the game without having to destroy everything, okay? So that's kind of what that game is. And of course, as spirits, you want to generate presence, and of course, you also, to do all that kind of damage, you also want to be able to grow. At the very beginning, you might start off with these minor powers. These are cards, and they have different powers on them. I know it's very hard to see with the camera, my poor lighting, but I'll read some of them out. Devouring Ants swarming wasps, sap of the strength of multitudes. Basically, as spirits, you use your power to, some spirits are the spirit of the trees, spirit of the forest, spirit of the rivers, spirit of the of flame, fire, of the mountains. Okay, and you use kind of all these different powers. So then a very nice one here maybe is, I don't know, Spear on with Words of Fire, Guardian Serpents, Fire in the Sky. Okay, so those are just different names of the minor powers. And of course you want to grow, right? The more you grow, you can then get these kind of major powers. And for the two spirits I really like, it's Tsunami for my ocean. It's very strong. And then for the other spirit, the one that works with nightmares and psychological damage to humans, I have this one. Dissolve the bonds of kinship. Basically, the invaders do damage to each other, which is really fun, and it's really morbid a bit. Terrifying nightmares and instruments of their own ruin. So this is kind of dealing with psychological damage. Very fun as well. Okay, so then why do all of these things have to relate to patterns? Okay, so let's take a look at this board here. You can't see? I don't know if you can see here. So hopefully you can see the phases in the game. Okay, notice at the very beginning, here, right there, your spirits grow. Okay, that's good, and that happens at the beginning, which is good. Then you have this little like eagle-looking thing. So that's the fast phase. So if your spirit has fast power, they go first, and it's really good because after that phase is the invader phase. The invader gets to do all sorts of things. They come to the land, they build shit, they ravage, they all do all the bad stuff. And then you have the slow phase, okay? The slow phase is if your spirit has a slow power, this is when it activates. And afterwards, the last but not least is cleanup phase. Time passes, whatever. Now, why does it have to do with patterns? It has to do with these phases. Because the spirits that I said I love using, good amounts of them have these slow powers, and you have to time it properly because you have to really think about the patterns in the game. You have to think when the invaders come, and then if you have a slow power, your power is going to come too late to get rid of these invaders, which then if you got rid of them, then they wouldn't be damaging the land. So then you either have to make it a fast power, which it's not really possible, or you have to figure out how to do it earlier. And then with my guy, one of my favorite guys I like using is the ocean. The ocean is very tricky to play because the ocean, like tides, it comes and goes. One turn you're on and you're smoking everybody, and then the next turn you're kind of doing nothing, and your partner kind of has to take over. So it's all about these cycles, and you have to work with these cycles. You need to figure out the pattern of the invaders, when they come and when they invade. And they all happens in sequence, and so you kind of have to really time it, and you have to calculate all in advance, which is why I love this game. Because, of course, I spend all my brain power doing all the math. Right now, I'm gonna spend all that more brain power in figuring out this game. So. But again, it's really fun. It's like a puzzle. You're trying to solve it, and that's exactly what we're doing. So I hope I did talk too much. So let's quickly get to it. This video is broken down into two parts. First part, I'm going to introduce kind of the strategy. Next video, I'm going to do more examples. So how to figure out a pattern. It's like a puzzle. So you kind of have to figure out the puzzle. The why I don't like this is because later on in math, you learn a much easier way to deal with it. You have a data table, and what you do with it is you just plot the graph, and you use a very standard equation to write out the equation. You don't even need to figure out the pattern. But the thing with patterns and doing all this first is to train our brains to observe, to pick out the patterns, and to make meaning out of these patterns. So this is why I'm still giving you this lesson as the first lesson, instead of just diving into the meaty stuff, the juicy stuff that is involved with graphing. And unfortunately, some of it is actually in grade 10 math, but I may push it back a little bit because it's so useful. Why not learn it? And anyways, let's go. Alrighty. Okay, so here, we've dealt with variables already, so hopefully we're not afraid of them as much. I'm not going to do example 1. It's not relevant. So I'm going to jump to example 2, where we actually have to take something and look at the pattern and use the pattern to figure out the equation. Here's an example. A landscaper designer uses wooden boards as edging for the plots in a herb garden. Here's 1 plot, 2 plot, 3 plots, 4 plots, etc. So the number of boards, which is these green boxes, is related to the number of boards B. Sorry, that's over here. Is related to the number of plots. The P is the number of these green squares. So here P is 1 for 1 plot, 2 for 2 plots, 3 for 3 plots, 3 of these squares, so forth. What are the boards? He has to build the edges around his herb garden. So that's why he needs boards. So for example, in the first plot, you need 4 edges in order to frame it. And then if you have 2 plots, if you count the sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, did I count around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Okay. Oh, wait, and then the middle counts, I suppose, as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so he needs to kind of divide up his land as well. So imagine those are all the side lengths that he needs to add, basically. And then the next one, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 10, okay? And then notice we start to see a pattern, okay? So if I go up by 1 on my plot, I increase by 3 as I go from one number to the next, okay? And because of that, I'm probably going to expect the 4th plot to have 13 boards. And again, I need plus 3 again. 1, 2, 3, okay? So here, let's answer this question. Find the relation between this. So as the number of plots increases by 1, the number of boards increases by 3. So increasing by 3 is a pattern, okay? And we know that as we count the number of times something is being added, it's almost like multiplying. So for example, if I add 3 once, that's 1 times 3. If I add 3 twice, that's 2 times 3. If I add 3 times, that's 3 times 3, etc. So my pattern has to do with some sort of multiplication. And whenever I have a pattern, whenever I want to write an equation, the general form of my equation is I want the thing that I want to find, to calculate, and in our case, we need to figure out the number of edging boards that we want. So that's going to be my B, and that's going to be on one side of my equation. It's kind of like isolating for it. And that's going to be, it's going to have, on the other side, there's going to be some function of the number of plots. I need to do something to this number P to figure out the number of edging boards. So I should have P somewhere in this equation. I might have a coefficient, I might add something or subtract something, whatever that is. The other side is just some bunch of numbers that are trying to manipulate P so that depending what P is, I'm going to get the corresponding B value, the number of edging boards. So let's take a look here. I know every time I need to add 3, okay? So maybe what I have to do is, if I take 3 and I multiply by my number of plots, that's going to give the number of times that I need to add 3 to my equation. But if I just have 3p, that doesn't quite make sense, because if I put in 1 as p, then I get 3p. That's not quite enough. I need 4, right? So then maybe I have to put plus 1 on this side. So I might need to add 1 like that. Okay, so then I calculate this out. Oh, I should really put that over here. So I put in the 1, then I get 3 times 1 plus 1. This is equal to 4. Okay, this is getting somewhere. Then we can use the same equation again to check if I'm going to get the correct value for 2 plots. So let's try that. I'm going to have 3 times 2 plus 1. That's 6 plus 1 is 7. Hey, that's starting to work. Oh, this is good. Then 3 times 3 plus 1, and that's going to give me 10. And 3 times 4 plus 1 is going to give me 13. Okay, so hey, this works. And we got it. It's B is equal to 3p plus 1. And then what we just did was we verified our pattern by plugging in our p and seeing if we get the right number we would expect for B as well. in the beginning, it may take some trial and error, but the key thing is what you want to plug in the right number for the P to get your corresponding B value. Okay, so you want to plug in that number that corresponds to whatever trial, to whatever part of your data that it corresponds to get your final number. Okay, so that's kind of the gist of it. And the key, of course, is to make sure you verify. Okay, that's the gist of it. So I'm going to end this video. It's been pretty long. I think I talked too much about my game. So in the next video, we're going to go over more examples. Okay, thank you for watching and listen to my blurbs. And I will see you in the next video. Fat Mama Physics, signing up.